because you are in the Hoodwood. I'm the Black Bandit, KJ Green, welcoming you to another edition of Sports in the Hoodwood. Coming up in this edition, college football hits championship week and chaos ensues. Imagine that. Take a look at the big games in the final week of the regular season, and we'll take a preview of the games leading up to the CFP. The NBA Cup. Is it less important since the Lakers failed to make the knockout? Does anybody really care? We'll take a look at the knockout round, the teams that are left, and the teams that got eliminated. The Eberflus Meltdown. How the Bears coach lost his gig amid a massive Turkey Day meltdown. How important is college hoops rankings before the new year? We'll take a look at some of the top teams and if upsets really matter this early in the season. We'll have NFL Week 14 picks, a great week of picks last week. See if I can keep that up. Hoodwood Hot 5, who I think makes the CFP playoffs. We'll have PhatDap, Head Slap, and a ton of fresh takes, crazy views, all sorts of stuff. It's Sports from the Hoodwood. Better put on your crash helmet and buckle your seatbelts. Sports from the Hoodwood's coming at you. Let's go!
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
Greetings from the Hoodwood, where someone took Nuffy's Santa hat. We got to figure that out. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this great program. I'm your man KJ Green, welcoming you back to the Hoodwood as we've turned the page into December. And because we've turned the page into December, that means college football is heating up. Championship week is in front of us, and the last day of November was probably one of the wildest days in college football. Michigan rolling into Columbus, 21-point underdogs to the mighty Buckeyes. No one knew if the Michigan was even going to stay on the field. All the experts said, this is a formality. Ohio State's going to break the 3-game losing streak. They're going to roll over Michigan, head to the Big Ten Championship for a rematch against Oregon. And Michigan was like, hold up, wait a minute, son. Let me speak at you for a second. Some things don't change. Ryan Day, once again, failure on the biggest stage. Ryan Day is 65-10 as Ohio State coach. He's 65-6 against other teams that are not named Michigan. He's 0-4 against the Wolverines now. Michigan stunning the second-ranked Buckeyes in Columbus by 13-10 count. Michigan turned the game into a rock fight, which Ohio State didn't want to do. They wanted to go up and down the field and score points galore. Will Howard, once again, like his head coach Ryan Day, failing to execute on the big stage. This may very well cost the Buckeyes a CFP shot. Maybe. Right now, as the CFP latest poll comes out, they are 7th. So they're still in line for a home game. But a first round bye, gone. Big Ten Championship, gone. The Buckeyes had the primrose path laid out in front of them. A weak Michigan team. The game in Columbus. 104,000 fans right behind you. And the Buckeyes could not get out of their own way. Turning the ball over at critical times. Missing field goals and chances to put points on the board. As I said before, Michigan wanted to keep it a rock fight. And keep it an ugly, low-scoring game. And that they did. scooting out with a 13-10 win. And as I've said time and time again, Ohio State fans are bad winners and even worse losers. They'll lord it over you when they're winning. When things are going their way, they're the best team in the country. People need to bow down and genuflect in front of the altar that is Ohio State football. When they lose, their fans lash out. I have numerous friends. I live in the state of Ohio. Hoodwood is in Ohio. I have numerous colleagues, relatives, friends that are Ohio State fans that were bitterly lashing out at me because I simply made a Facebook post. You had one job, Ohio State, and you couldn't seal the deal against a weak Michigan team. That is what, I mean, the defending national champions notwithstanding, that is the weakest Michigan team I've seen in decades. Not since the Rich Rod debacles of the late aughts have you seen a weaker team. And that was just the tip of the iceberg when it came to college football. The U, another team with a primrose path laid out before them to get to the ACC title. Something that the Canes have yet to do since joining the ACC 10 years ago. They go to Syracuse and get bounced in the Carrier Dome by a decent Orange team, but Miami was supposed to roll through this game. So now you have ACC newcomer SMU and Clemson facing off in Charlotte. Not the Canes. This was supposed to be the year that they were to ascend back to relevancy in the college football world. They, like the Bucks, are now sitting at home waiting for their fate to be decided. Their picture's a little bit more murkier than the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes, that was their first loss. The Canes, that's their second. And 2 losses may be too many for them to get a pass into the college football playoff. The SEC is going to be even wilder. Georgia Tech surviving a mammoth scare from the Georgia Tech Ramblin' Wreck. The Yellow Jackets took them to not 1, not 2, 8 overtimes before a final 2-point conversion and a defensive stop give the Bulldogs the win. And a game that would have had the Bulldogs lost would have wrecked their CFP hopes. Though it was a non-con game, but it still would have been a loss that they could have ill afforded. They now have a rematch against Texas, who survived an upset bid of their own by remoniker conference rival Texas A&M. The Longhorns struggled mightily in College Station, but they got the win. So now you have an SEC showdown in Atlanta this Saturday. In the Big 12, Arizona State and Iowa State emerged from a 14 morass to advance to the Big 12 championship in Dallas. 4 teams with a 7-2 record had got to it through a marathon of tiebreakers. Arizona State and Iowa State advanced to the title game. The winner of that game will go to the CFP without question. Everybody that is watching this wants Arizona State to go on through. If Iowa State, a 3-loss team, gets in, that's going to make it harder for some of these other SEC teams, your Alabamas, your Ole Misses, to try to force their way into the conversation. And then you have Boise State. The Broncos keep on trucking, but they face an upset-minded UNLV in the title tilt. That one's going to be in Boise. The Mountain West Championship will be in Boise. The Broncos should win this game. And if they do, the Primrose Path has been laid out for them to get to be the leading team in the group of 5 to ascend to the CFP field. Army and Tulane face off at Friday night in West Point for the American title. Army is still holding out a little bit of hope of being able to get into the CFP field themselves. Tulane also has slim chances, but with the things falling the right way, they might be that ascended group of 5 team to make the to make the college football playoff field. Is it chaos? Yes. Is it a whole hell of a lot of fun? You betcha. This Saturday is going to be absolutely wild when it comes to who's going to be playing for what and what kind of high-stakes showdowns are going to be going on in an action-packed championship weekend. I can't wait to see it. I'm looking over some stats here, and quick, tell me what 8 teams are left in the NBA Cup. Quick. Too late. Do you know the NBA Cup is going on? Are you really aware of the in-season tournament that the NBA has been running? I can tell you one thing. Name any of the 28 teams that are in the NBA. And you have an 8 and 28 chance of getting who's right. The Magic, Bucks, Hawks, Knicks are in the Eastern Conference. Mavericks, Thunder, Warriors, Rockets are in the West. Those are 8 teams that are left that have made it to the knockout stage. That single elimination tournament starts next week, and it has just not moved the sporting landscape that much. I mean, with the finals being a week before Christmas, on a Tuesday, do you really think that the sporting public is really going to be locked in on a Tuesday night game that many people don't even know is happening? And with the defending NBA Cup champ LA Lakers having been knocked out and LeBron James kind of going, nobody cares. Nobody really thinks that much about it. Do you think that the NBA Cup really has a lot of gravitas now that the marquee Lakers are no longer in it? The thing I keep thinking is funny about this tournament is that how little people understand how the whole thing is set up and how regular season games seem to figure into the equation. Adam Silver was way too obsessed with European soccer tournaments and how they're structured. Soccer tournaments are different. They're set up different. The way they don't count for regular season stats like the NBA Cup does. The problem with the NBA Cup is if you made it a separate in-season tournament, teams will be just putting their JV squads on there. You would see a whole bunch of nobodies starting these games. A whole bunch of G Leaguers playing, pretending to be NBA teams. The NBA Cup could have a lot of gravitas if you tied something more into it than a $500,000 per player payout. If you said, okay, the winner of this tournament has a guaranteed playoff spot, you can bet your bottom dollar these teams will be playing a whole hell of a lot harder, and that there'll be a lot more interest in these games besides the hideous floors that they play on. The NBA Cup, the teams that made it, well, as I laid out before, you have the teams in the East and the teams in the West, 4 each that'll be playing through to the finals. Just showing the graphic here. Now, the notable teams that did make it, of course, we already talked about the Lakers didn't make it. We also talk about the Timberwolves, my favorite team, didn't make it. Warriors made it, the Rockets made it, but you didn't have the Nuggets. They didn't make it. The Celtics, the defending NBA champions, they're not in it. You're talking about interest in teams that would make this NBA Cup early on. A lot of teams don't care. And the situation that the players kind of like they're lackluster about it, the fans are kind of like, and this game means what? It's a confusing situation to say the least. Take a time out. Come back and we will look in depth at the Eberflus Meltdown. How this Turkey Day travesty cost the Bears former head coach now his job. Sports from the Hoodwood comes back at you after this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's premier destination for no-nonsense commentary, thorough analysis, and logical insight on the world of sports. Now here's the man that Wikipedia and Google call for sports fact checks, your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood where the search for Snuffy Santa Hat continues. Thanksgiving was very festive in the Hoodwood. I actually went to Michigan, spent time with my girlfriend, executive producer Tracy Kendall, that we made merry. We had way too much to eat, and we watched football like most people do on Thanksgiving. We took in the Lions-Bears game, and the Bears found a way to mess it up. They had the ball driving down the field. Tracy's worried, and she's a Lions fan, and she was just like, what if they score? What's going to happen? This, then. It's like, don't worry. It's the Bears. They'll figure out a way to mess it up. And true to form, the Bears, who lost their last 3 divisional games by a grand total of 7 points, found a way to mess up with 30-some-odd seconds on the clock and a timeout in pocket. They only get one playoff. A desperation Hail Mary that falls yards short of the end zone. The Lions happy to take the win, their 11th of the season. But Matt Eberflus was the one that needed to be called on the carpet for his abject meltdown. A coaching communication failure of the grandest sort. And you have to wonder, what were you thinking? The Bears had a timeout in pocket on the last drive. Did use a timeout after Williams was sacked with 32 seconds to play. He gets sacked. And the clock's running. Tick, 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 tick. And we're watching, it was me and Tracy's family were watching the game. And I'm literally going, what are they doing? What are they doing? Somebody call a timeout. Do something. The Bears weren't in field goal range. They needed to get about 8 to 10 yards back to at least give Santos a shot at kicking a field goal to tie the game. They didn't run a play, and you're just watching it. The clock just melt away, and the Bears aren't calling a timeout. They're lackadaisical to the line. I'm like, you need to have a little urgency about you. Jim Nantz of CBS even said, a disaster in the making. And that's what it was. After the game, Eberflus defended his play calling, saying that he liked the sequence and that they didn't get the plays off the way they wanted to, but he defended his actions. Timeouts don't roll over from one half to the next, from one game to the next. He had that timeout and didn't use it. It was a coaching meltdown. And it cost him his job. The Bears, for the first time in franchise history, make an in-season coaching change. The Bears are one of the oldest franchises in the NFL, dating back over 100 years. They have never made a mid-season coaching change. And I was on my way back home from Michigan on Friday when the word came down. And I wasn't shocked. And I think it wasn't the meltdown itself, but it was the vociferous defense of the sequence at game's end that illustrated and proved to upper Bears management that he was incapable of being a coach. He was incapable of in-game management or in-game management. And you look at the way the Bears, who started off very good, they have lost 5 games in a row. First, their offense was just stuck in the mud. They changed offensive coordinators. Thomas Brown, who was the offensive coordinator, he was one of the offensive play callers, offensive assistant, was elevated to offensive coordinator when the original offensive coordinator was fired 4 weeks ago, is now the head coach. And Eberflus will likely get a job somewhere as a defensive coordinator. He's a defensive-minded coach. But his meltdowns and failures on the offensive side, poor in-game management, and Caleb Williams having to bear the brunt of it, and it's not his fault. Caleb Williams has played excellent, throwing over 220 passes without an interception. Very well healed for a rookie. But then it bears the mind. They ran Justin Fields out of town for reasons that Eberflus never really could explain. They draft Caleb Williams number 1. They had the Panthers number 1 pick. So they took Caleb Williams, very well regarded out of USC. But the offense just was stuck in the mud. And it cost Eberflus his job, rightfully so. You know, we're still in the early stages of the college basketball season, so there's a lot of jockeying and positioning and moving around, but there's a lot of really good non-conference games. The Big 12 Big East battle is going on. My Bearcats fell flat on their face in Philadelphia against Villanova, but you also have the SEC ACC Men's Challenge. The Big Ten, I believe they have one that's going to be going on here soon. But it's the thing of the big basketball conferences really testing themselves out against good marquee opponents. And a lot of this is made for TV, and a lot of this is good to watch, great TV to watch. But early on in the season, you wonder if a number 1 team, as this show was being taped, Kansas's number 1 team, they are trailing to Creighton. But you have to wonder, is this the rankings really meaning anything this early in the season? I mean, I know it's a lot of jockeying and positioning and everything, and a number 1 team being number one in December ain't the same as a number one team in March. UConn, which I'm always pleased to watch Danny Hurley fall on his face, lost 3 games in Maui. 2 talented teams, but they lost all 3 games in Maui and finished 8th. Danny Hurley whining about how he doesn't want to do any more MTE events anymore, multi-team events, and that his team will only play single one-off games in exotic locales. So that means he doesn't want to go to Maui. He doesn't want to go like the Battle for the Bahamas or any of these other multi-team events that he can't control. Now, don't be surprised if in the very, very near future that UConn announces some sort of 4-team classic, invites 3 cupcakes, and has 2 quick wins that they can pile up the money with 2 cupcake teams to face. Or that they'll play a one-off game in, say, Madison Square Garden, or take on a Duke in Washington, D.C., or some other place where the narrative can be controlled and UConn won't be exposed to multiple teams that they can take multiple losses in. UConn lost 3 times in the span of a week. I don't think they lost 3 times the whole year last year. But that's neither here nor there. You measure yourself against your competition. When you play strong competition, you're not guaranteed to win every game. I've had to talk so many of my Cincinnati Bearcats brethren off the ledges because they lost a game in December. It don't matter that much. The rankings, while nice, are not what's driving things right now. It's good TV. The games really ain't gonna start to matter until after the calendar turns. Once we get into January and we get into conference play, that's when the money's going to start to be made. That's when you're really going to see the real battles. That's when you're going to see a number one team falling in a road venue, say Kansas falling in Ames to Iowa State, or falling in Cincinnati to the Bearcats. That's going to be something where, while it's going to move the needle, it's not going to be something that's going to destroy a team playing early. Number one team losing to an unranked, say Kansas losing to an unranked Creighton, that's big news. But do the rankings really hold that much sway this early in the season? I like to say that a team that's number one early in the season has a target on its back. And you rarely see a number one team in the preseason cut down the nets for the one shining moment that first Monday in April. It very rarely happens. I can attest to this. 1996, my beloved Bearcats, preseason number one. The cover of Sports Illustrated had Danny Fortson on it. You can't go get to Indianapolis without going through Cincinnati. They were the preseason number one. They lost their second game of the season, albeit to crosstown rival Xavier, and I still throw up a little in my mouth every time I think of Andy Mack Williams, who was the play-by-play guy for Xavier, saying, University of Cincinnati, number one in the nation, but number two in its city. Just made my skin crawl. But the number one team in November doesn't hold as much gravitas. I mean, everybody likes to be the preseason number one. Not a pub goes with it. But if you're number one in November, early December, January, doesn't mean as much as it is being the number one team in February or March, or being that ultimate number one, the team that survives that 68 team free-for-all, and being that last team standing that first Monday in May. That first Monday in April. Let's take a time out, come back. Week 14 of the NFL season is upon us. Let's see if we can get these picks as well as we did last week. Sports from the Hoodwood continues after this.
Is Is today your last day on Earth because you are being deployed to space tomorrow? Have you just turned 18 and you're ready to get out of your parents' house? Has your granddaughter gotten her boyfriend pregnant? Whatever your reason, you need us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com. We specialize in last-minute weddings. Active duty, military veterans and retired discounts are available. Visit us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com.
Hi everyone, I'm KJ Green. If you're looking to reach a broad audience for your advertising dollars, look no further than where you are right now. You can advertise right here in the Hoodwood. If you need spots created as well, Black Banner Productions Enterprises can create commercial content that drives sales and gets results. You can send your inquiries to ads at BlackBannerProductions.com. Black Banner Productions and Enterprises. Sounds, ideas, and images of the 21st century.
You are tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for opinion, analysis, and insight on the world of sports. Here now is the man banned from sports trivia contests in 38 states and 4 Canadian provinces, and not to mention Guam. Your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood. Now let's get into the Week 14 NFL picks. Maybe it was a thought of the turkey. Very yummy. Stuffing was really good too. Maybe it was a homemade cranberry sauce. Made with sugar substitute, because I'm type 2. Didn't want to overdo it on that, but it was so tasty. I don't know. Maybe it was the moon. Maybe it was the bossa nova. No, it wasn't the bossa nova. Damn sure it wasn't the bossa nova. But for whatever reason, the Week 13 picks came down right last week. A lot of them came down last week. 14 of the 16 picks came down last week. The only losses were a toss-up between the Falcons and the Chargers. Sooner or later, I will remember that Kirk Cousins will do those Kirk Cousins things. Oh boy, shouldn't have picked him. And a toss-up in Baltimore between the Eagles and the Ravens. That game could have went either way. The Eagles could pull that one out. But besides that, every pick went down as called. Now I'm hoping to continue the good run, and I'll present for your perusal, review, and approval the Week 14 picks. All odds are provided by ESPN Bet for entertainment and comparison purposes only, which means if you bet the lines, lose, and get took, I will not make your next layaway payment on the Christmas presents. Don't ask. Now, this is the final week of the byes as the 8-5 Broncos, who defeated the Browns 41-32. The 8-5 Commanders, who defeated the Titans 42-19. 8-5 Ravens, who lost the Eagles 24-19. 8-5 Texans, who defeated the Jaguars 23-20. And the 6-7 Colts, who defeated 3-10 Patriots 25-24, all take their long overdue week off. All times are presented in Eastern Standard, so check the website at 506sports.com for a comprehensive coverage map for the games that are showing in your area. We've already covered the Thursday night game, as I posted that already on Facebook, so we will go straight to the Sunday games. First on the docket is the 4-8 Saints taking on the 2-10 Giants at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. The Saints are 4.5-point favorites. Last week, the Saints lost to the Rams 21-14, while the Giants lost to the Cowboys 27-20. Fast fact, here's the Giants had their first lead in a game since week 5 when Tyrone Tracy Jr. scored in the first quarter against Dallas. That lead lasted all 7 minutes of game time until the Bavarian Overshown scored on an interception return in the second quarter for the Cowboys for them to take back the lead. Now, the Saints lost a tight one at home and head to Gotham to face a G-Man team that is playing worse by the week. That's possible. I don't think the Saints offense is world-beating by any stretch of the imagination, but they are better than the Giants, who are lacking any sort of direction on either side of the ball. The pick here is New Orleans. Next on the docket, we have the 3-9 Browns taking on the 9-3 Steelers at Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh. 1 o'clock kickoff on CBS. The Steelers are 6.5-point favorites. Last week, the Browns lost to the Broncos 41-32, while the Steelers defeated the Bengals 44-38. Fast fact, Browns quarterback Jameis Winston threw for a team record 497 yards in the Browns' loss. Now, the Steelers continue to pump out wins and head home to face the Browns, who are playing better on offense behind Jameis Winston, if that's possible. But his nasty tendency to turn the ball over at inopportune times is costing them games. Now, the Steelers' defense is very suspect, to be sure. They gave up 38 points in Cincinnati last week, and I think they might give up a bushel of points to the Browns themselves. But I think the Steelers are gunning for revenge after their shocking loss in the snow to the Browns 2 weeks ago, and will pull out a tight one. The pick here is Pittsburgh. Next on the docket, we have the 6-6 Falcons taking on the 10-2 Vikings at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The Vikings are 5.5-point favorites. Last week, the Falcons lost to the Chargers 17-13, while the Vikings defeated the Cardinals 23-22. Fast fact is the Vikings' 10 wins are built on 2 separate 5-game win streaks. Kirk Cousins returns to Minnesota as a Falcon for the first time after a highly polarizing 6-season stint as a Vikings starting quarterback. His current team is playing up and down ball as Cousins goes, so do the Falcons. And they're coming off a lackluster loss to the Chargers at home, where Cousins threw 4 interceptions, and he has not thrown a touchdown pass in the past 3 weeks. The Vikings seem to be just fine without Cousins, as Sam Darnold has impressed all with his play and his leadership. The Vikings has rode this play to 10 wins. Look for the Vikings defense to try to capitalize on the immobility of Cousins and bring a steady, heavy rush to the forefront. The Vikings will try hard to make Cousins rue the day that he left them and show them that Darnold makes them a better team. The pick here is Minnesota. Next on the docket, we have the 2-10 Raiders taking on the 6-6 Buccaneers at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Buccaneers are 6.5-point favorites. Last week, the Raiders lost to the Chiefs 19-17, while the Buccaneers defeated the Panthers 26-23 in overtime. Fast fact is the Raiders have trailed by double digits in every game that they've played this season. Now, the Raiders are plodding through a miserable season and lost a heartbreaker to their despised rival Chiefs last Friday. And they stay on the road and head to Florida to face the Bucs, who may have saved their floundering season with a gutty win over Carolina in overtime. The Raiders are a mess, as I said, on both sides of the ball, and while the Bucs are far from a juggernaut, they are light years better than the Raiders. The pick here is Tampa Bay. Next on the docket, we have the 3-9 Panthers taking on the 10-2 Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The Eagles are 12-point favorites. Last week, the Panthers lost to the Buccaneers 26-23 in overtime, while the Eagles defeated the Ravens 24-19. Fast fact, here's Eagles running back Saquon Barkley needs 108 rushing yards to surpass the franchise's single-season rushing record held by LaShawn McCoy. Now, the Panthers gave it a go, but fell in overtime to the Bucs. They head to Philly to face an Eagles team brimming with confidence after a gritty road win in Baltimore. Now, I've said that the Eagles will lose a game sometime here soon, but I'm confident it won't be this week. That's why I'm making Philadelphia the Hoodwood Hot of the week. Next on the docket, we have the 2-10 Jaguars taking on the 3-9 Titans at Nissan Stadium in Nashville. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Titans are 4-point favorites. Last week, the Jaguars lost to the Texans 23-20, while the Titans lost to the Commanders 42-19. Fast fact is the Titans have won 9 of the last 10 meetings in Nashville. Now, a bad season has just turned worse for the Jags as they lost their franchise quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, to a concussion protocol, and he will be shelved for the rest of the season. They head to Nashville to face an equally woeful Titans squad coming off a nasty beatdown in the nation's capital. Both teams are equally bad, to be sure, but the Titans have a bit more organization going for it, and a little bit better depth on offense, and that will get them a badly needed win. The pick here is Tennessee. Let's take a time out, come back with the rest of the Week 14 NFL picks. Sports from the Hoodwood rolls on after this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest insight, thorough analysis, and unfiltered opinion on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's the man of the hour, After Hours, your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood. Let's continue with the Week 14 picks. Next on the docket, we have the 3-9 Jets taking on the 5-7 Dolphins at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Dolphins are 6-point favorites. Last week, the Jets lost to the Seahawks 26-21, while the Dolphins lost to the Packers 30-17. Fast fact here is the Dolphins' loss in Green Bay was their 12th straight loss in games where the kickoff temp is below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the Jets bumbled their way into another loss of a winnable game at home as untimely turnovers doomed them. Meanwhile, the Dolphins are just happy to be in the warmer climes of South Florida after crumbling in the cold in Green Bay Thanksgiving night. Now, the Dolphins are far from world beaters to be sure, but against teams that they can bully like the emotionally fragile Jets, they should be able to capitalize on the inevitable dumb mistake the Jets will make. That's why I have the pick as Miami. Next on the docket, we have the 7-5 Seahawks taking on the 6-6 Cardinals at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. 4:05 kickoff on CBS. The Cards are 2.5-point favorites. Last week, the Seahawks defeated the Jets 26-21, while the Cardinals lost to the Vikings 23-22. Fast fact here is Seahawks defensive lineman Leonard Williams' 98-yard interception return for a touchdown was the longest ever interception by a defensive lineman. Now, the Seahawks took advantage of the Jets' tendency to collapse at the most inopportune times and eked out a narrow win. They headed to the desert to take on the Cards, who blew a decent lead on the road in Minnesota and lost late. Now, this game is for control of the NFC West, and the Cardinals need this win to avoid giving the Seahawks a crucial head-to-head tiebreaker with a head-to-head sweep. As much as I like Kyler Murray's and his ability to extend plays and tire out defenses, I just can't trust the Cardinals' overall ability to play as a team and not blow late leads. And the Seahawks just seem to be playing a little bit better consistently. That's why I have Seattle as a Hoodwood upset of the week. Next on the docket, we have the 10-2 Bills taking on the 6-6 Rams at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. 4:25 kickoff on Fox. The Bills are 5-point favorites. Last week, the Bills defeated the 49ers 35-10, while the Rams defeated Next on the docket, we have the 10-2 Bills taking on the 6-6 Rams at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. 4:25 kickoff on Fox. The Bills are 5-point favorites. Last week, the Bills defeated the 49ers 35-10, while the Rams defeated the Saints 21-14. Fast fact here is the Bills have scored 30 or more points in 6 straight games. Now the Bills throttled the Niners in the snow in Buffalo and now head west to face the Rams, who played just good enough to slide by the woebegone Saints. Just sliding by won't do against a team that can score and score in bunches in the Bills. Now the Rams' inconsistent play on defense will face a real test against a dynamic Josh Allen-led Bills offense, and I don't think that they will be able to keep up with the Bills, who will put up plenty of points. Just ain't gonna happen. The pick here is Buffalo. Next on the docket, we have the 4-8 Bears taking on the 5-7 49ers at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California. 4:25 kickoff on Fox. The 49ers are 4.5-point favorites. Last week, the 49ers lost to the Bills 35-10, while the Bears lost to the Lions 23-20. Fast fact is recently deposed Bears coach Matt Eberflus was 5-19 in one-score games, easily the NFL's worst in that number of games, including losing the last 3 straight by less than 1 score. Now, the Bears are hoping the new head coach Thomas Miller will inject some life into their fading season as they head to the Bay to face a Niners team that more resembles a mass unit than a contender. The Niners' lack of a viable offensive threat and offensive options are dwindling, and that is troubling. But I think being home and the Bears' lack of offensive stability, Caleb Williams notwithstanding, will be enough to pull out a slim win. The pick here is San Francisco. The Sunday night game is the 8-4 Chargers taking on the 11-1 Chiefs at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. 8:20 kickoff on NBC and Peacock. The Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites. Last week, the Chargers defeated the Falcons 17-13, while the Chiefs defeated the Raiders 19-17. Fast fact is Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes had 113 consecutive starts without being sacked 5 times or more. Last 2 weeks, the Panthers and Raiders have gotten 5 or more sacks each. Now, the Chargers slugged their way to an ugly but badly needed win in Atlanta and stay on the road to face the Chiefs, who just keep finding the oddest ways to win. A botched snap for a missed field goal. You didn't have that on your bingo cards, did you? Now, sooner or later, the Chiefs' luck is going to run out. And you would think that a Chargers team would be able to capitalize on the Chiefs' tendency to bumble their way through games and slide out with wins. And their tendency to play up and down is troubling, to say the very least. But I just can't give the Chiefs that kind of a mulligan at home. I think that Kansas City pulls this one out. The pick here is Kansas City. Finally, the Monday night game is between the 4-8 Bengals taking on the 5-7 Cowboys at AT&T Field in Arlington, Texas. 8:15 kickoff on ABC and ESPN. The Bengals are 5-point favorites. Last week, the Bengals lost to the Steelers 44-38, while the Cowboys defeated the Giants 27-20. Fast fact, here the Bengals have scored 96 points in their last 3 games, averaging 32 points per game, and have lost all 3 games. But Dallas has only scored 32 points or more only twice this season. The hard luck Bengals score in bushels and bushels and bushels, but give up scores just as fast. Their 340 points allowed is the highest in the AFC and second most in the NFL. Now, the problem is, folks have in this matchup is their defense is just as bad. Their 339 points allowed is the second highest in the NFC and tied for third most in the NFL. If you're wondering who's giving up the most points, that would be the Panthers. If you're looking for people to blame for the Bengals' pitiful season, leave Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase off that list. He has kept the Bengals competitive with a gang of TD throws and few interceptions. And the aforementioned Chase is piling up his usual all-pro numbers. I think while Cooper Rush may put up numbers against the poorest Bengals defense, the Bengals will have just enough in the tank offensively to finally be on the right side of a shootout. The pick here is Cincinnati. And there you have it. Last week I went 14-2. Lock was correct and the upset was incorrect on the 2 losses. The overall tally is 133 wins, 7 losses, 8-5 on the locks, 5-8 on the upsets. We will take our final timeout, come back with the Hoodwood Hot 5, PhatDap, Head Slap, and the final word from the Wood. Sports from the Hoodwood heads down the home stretch after this.
Is today your last day on Earth because you are being deployed to space tomorrow? Have you just turned 18 and you're ready to get out of your parents' house? Has your granddaughter gotten her boyfriend pregnant? Whatever your reason, you need us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com. We specialize in last-minute weddings. Active duty, military veterans and retired discounts are available. Visit us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com.
Hi everyone, I'm KJ Green. If you're looking to reach a broad audience of your advertising dollar, look no further than Alright. Advertising right here in the Hoodwood. If you need to watch creative as well, Black Banner Productions supplies content, drive sales, and gets results. Send your inquiries to ads at blackbannerproductions.com. Black Banner Productions and Eberflus. Sounds, ideas, and images of the 21st century.
tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for no-nonsense commentary, insight, and opinions on the world of sports. Here now live in living color, black by popular demand, your host, KJ Green.
Rounding third and headed for home here in the Hoodwood. Let's finish up strong with the Hoodwood Hot 5, PhatDap, Head Slap, and the final word from the wood. The Hoodwood Hot 5 is a little different this week. I'm not ranking the teams. I am ranking who I think makes the CFP playoffs. And I have 5 categories to be able to break down. First of all, let's start with the 4 teams that I think are going to make the byes. There I have Oregon, Georgia, SMU, and Boise State. Now, Oregon, I think, will win the Big Ten title, beating Penn State. I think Georgia will win the SEC title, beating Texas. SMU is a bit of a wild card coming out of the ACC. Their first year in the ACC taking that crown. I think that has warranted them enough to get a bye. And then you have Boise State. That's kind of a wild card there. I think they'll win the Mountain West and be high enough that they can step over some of these teams to get a bye. Now, the next category are the 4 teams I think that will host playoff games that will rank 5 through 8. Of course, you're going to have Notre Dame. Notre Dame is sitting at home basically waiting for their invitation. The way it's set up, Notre Dame cannot get any of the 4 byes, but they can rank high enough where they'll have an automatic qualifier if they finish in the top 10. And Notre Dame, being right now ranked 3rd, will have a high enough ranking where they will earn a first round host game. Be an interesting sight, the Irish playing in December in South Bend. Next you have Texas. I think that they will lose their rematch with Georgia in the SEC title game in Atlanta, but here's a consolation prize for you, Texas. You get a December home game at Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium. Yeah, 100,000 fans in a December game, in a playoff game. That'll be nice. Next, you have Penn State. They, too, I think, will lose their conference title game, this being against Oregon. But, as a consolation, they, too, will be able to play in their formidable home fortress in December. And wouldn't that just be interesting if it was snowing in Happy Valley in December? Could imagine that happening. Then also the last of the 4 teams that I think will be hosting a playoff game will be Tennessee. They, unlike the previous 2 teams before them, haven't played in any kind of conference championship game. But I think they have played well enough that they will warrant being able to get a home playoff game. They're not the strongest of the 4 teams in that second tier, but I think they're stronger than the next 4 teams that I'm mentioning. Now, the next 4 teams I have are in the playoff, but they hit the road. First, you have the Indiana Hoosiers. Yes, they went 11-1. They absolutely destroyed Purdue in their season finale, but I don't think they've done enough. Their one test against the Ohio State University, they failed miserably. They'll get in the playoff, but they'll have to go on the road. Next, we have Arizona State. Excuse me. They will win the Big 12, but they had too low of a ranking to make up enough ground to get one of the coveted 4 byes or a home game. I think that they will beat Iowa State in Dallas to win the Big 12 title, but unfortunately, they'll have to go on the road in the first round of the CFP playoffs. Next, we'll have the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now, the Buckeyes won't fall so far because of their loss to Michigan, but they won't play for the Big Ten title, so that means no bye. They didn't lose the Big Ten title. Again, they didn't play for the Big Ten title, so they're not high enough to warrant a home game. I think that puts them on the road to go to one of these venues. Wouldn't you love to see an Ohio State-Penn State rematch in December? Or see Ohio State have to go to Notre Dame or Tennessee? That would be really interesting. Now, I jumbled over the 4 teams that were left that right now are on the fence. And as much as I don't want to do it, I'm going to give that fourth team that I think is going to get in the playoffs but hit the road, the University of Miami. Yes, they have played horribly down the stretch, losing 2 of their last 3 to Georgia Tech and Syracuse, but both of those were on the road, and both of them were close games. Why I don't put any of the next 4 in, I'll explain. On the outside looking in category, first of all, we have Alabama. I don't want to hear Paul Feinbaum whine and complain about pedigrees and strength of schedules. They have lost 3 games. Yes, all of them were on the road, but you have lost 3 games. A 3-loss team should not be in the playoff unless they're an automatic qualifier. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Iowa State. But they do not deserve to get in the playoff. They're not playing the SEC championship game. They didn't even come close to the SEC championship game. They have 3 conference losses. Ole Miss is just as big a problem. Yeah, they've won some games, but they've also fell on their face in a couple times. That loss to Kentucky, You lose to Kentucky, a weak Kentucky team, you have no business being in there. BYU and Colorado are also teams from the Big 12 that are going to be on the outside looking in. Not for want of credentials, but neither one of them made their conference tournament or have credible enough resumes to be able to say, oh, well, they didn't make the conference tournament, the conference championship, but. And you say, well, wait a minute. You have Tennessee hosting a playoff game. You have Ohio State in the field. Both of those teams have 1 loss. 1. Notre Dame has 1 loss. That's enough where you could say, yeah, their resume has warts, but they don't have a lot of losses. And then you have your potential spoilers and party crashers. Clemson, UNLV, Iowa State, Tulane. All 4 of them are playing in conference championship games. And if they win, they could get the automatic berths and crash the party. No one wants to see any of these teams getting into the playoffs because they would be road warriors. Teams that have gone on the road to win big games. And they could mess up a whole bunch of Christmases and New Year's if they get in. Those are teams that I think can make a run if they get in. But they won't get in unless they're invited. And the only way they're going to get invited is if they win their conference tournament. Try it again. If they win their conference championship. Can it happen? Sure, it can happen. But those are spoilers and party crashers that no one wants to see doing the running man or the cabbage patch in the corner as they've gotten invited to the playoff because they have that automatic bid. These are the lop-eared mutts no one wants to see. That's my hot 5. What's yours? Now, real quick, let's get into the PhatDap and Head Slap of the Week. PhatDap of the Week goes to Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver Jamar Chase, who visited the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Cincinnati in Avondale, one of the neighborhoods in Cincinnati, just this past Tuesday, giving a holiday shopping experience for 100 kids. Now, I know a lot of athletes do stuff like that, but I like seeing this happen, that seeing superstar athletes in the community that they're working and playing in, giving to the communities and being human. Somebody that is actually there with the kids, doing stuff and making a positive impact. Those kids will always remember that kind of experience they've had, interaction with a player like Jamar Chase. PhatDap to Chase for making kids' Christmases that much brighter. Our head slap of the week, and maybe it's piling on, I don't know, I really don't care. UConn's Dan Hurley, who complains and whines after his two-time defending national champion UConn Huskies lose 3 times in Maui, finishing dead last. The Huskies went from number 2 in the country all the way down to number 25. And I'm surprised they didn't get bounced out of the rankings altogether. Head slap to Dan Hurley for being so great, but not winning at all. Now, without much further ado, let's go to the final word from the Wood. Rivalries. They are what make college sports, especially college football, great. Last week, there were a number of very passionate college rivalries. Ohio State, Michigan, Texas A&M finally getting together after 13 years of being out of conference with one another. Of course, the legendary Auburn, Alabama, Iron Bowl. You have even the little ones like Harvard, Yale, The Game, or good old fashioned hate between Georgia and Georgia Tech. Great games, passion on both sides, and games that you will always remember for great things that happen. The kick six in the Auburn, Alabama game. Desmond Howard running the kickoff back and doing the Heisman pose as he crossed into the end zone. The 8 overtimes that Georgia and Georgia Tech played just this past Friday. Legendary rivalries oftentimes spark legendary games that people still talk about. But how far do rivalries go? I understand passion. I really do. Your team is your team. One of my alma mater's bigger rivals, Miami of Ohio. I traveled up to Oxford, Ohio, which is about 35 miles northwest of Cincinnati, to take in the UC Miami game. And the vitriol that I took, me and my friend Mel, walking from the parking lot to the venue, Yager Stadium, the vitriol that I took just walking and having on a UC football jersey and a baseball cap. It was middle of September, hot day. The vitriol that I took just from that was just nasty. And I've been to Michigan, Ohio State games, and the two fan bases don't like one another. It's very obvious. Columbus goes so far as to take anything that has an M in it in the city limits and put an X through it. I think that's going a little too far, but that's the way the rivalry goes. But has the rivalries gone too far? Have the delineation between rooting for your team and denigrating the other team gone around the bend? There were numerous fights between the players of opposing teams. Arizona State, fight. Michigan, Ohio State, a nasty brawl after the game. North Carolina State, fight. And we're not talking about just a little bit of jaw-jacking and pushing and shoving. We're talking about people throwing punches. People being body slammed. Police in Columbus had to come out with pepper spray and mace to break up fights. Something like that is shameful and goes beyond what good rivalries should be. Yeah, you have a rival, talk some trash to them, tease them when their team loses to your team. It's all part of competition in sport, and it should all be done in well-heeled fun. Me personally, on the pro side, being a big Minnesota Vikings fan, I know a lot of Green Bay Packer fans. I'm friends with quite a few of them. We tease one another and we jaw-jack at one another. But after the game is over, we're going to sit back, toss back a couple of beers, and talk a little bit of smack to one another. But it's all in good fun. When the good fun starts to turn into fisticuffs, violence, harm, that's taking it too far. That's not something I want to be part of. That's not something that I want to see. I want to see two rivals play to the maximum of their abilities, going head up, leaving it all on the field. And then after the game is over, slapping each other on the back and saying, till next year? Yup, till next year. And going their separate ways. Violence and chaos has no part in any kind of rivalry. And I think that is just silliness to its highest form. And that is the final word from the Wood. Now with the music coming up in the background, you know that means that your time here in the Hoodwood is just about done, and I thank you so much for your visit. Now the show's email is kjgreen@sportsfromthehoodwood.com. Please send me emails regarding show topics, both past and future, questions, comments on the show, and both praise and criticism. I welcome your correspondence, and I will try to get back with you in a timely manner. Now the show's website is sportsfromthehoodwood.com, which has a back catalog of the show dating back 12 years in both audio and video forms. You can check that out if there's shows that you may have missed. And you can join the debate and conversation on the Sports from the Hoodwood Facebook page. It also has a video podcast simulcast as well as other topics, funny stuff that I find on the web, plenty of great sports debate, and lots more. I post often and respond to member posts frequently. Now the video versions of the show are also on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe and smash that like button for more great content. Now the link to the podcast is also on the show's Blue Sky feed at hoodwoodsports.bsky.social. It has a host of other interesting stuff that I also find. The correspondence with the show is encouraged, and we do respond back. So do like and follow there as well. Now, the audio version is on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Samsung Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and a host of other great podcast platforms and providers. If the Hoodwood is not on your favorite, ask for it. Drop me a line and I'll see what I can do to get it there. As we've expanded our podcast availability thanks to you. As always, special thanks to Rage Pictures for providing production assistance to both the show and website. And that's it from the Hoodwood, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Until next time, fellow sports fans, I'm Merely Bev's son, KJ Green, 30.
Sports from the Hoodwood
Is a Black Bandit Productions and Enterprises presentation
of a 551 audio and films production.